after you leave Christendom, because as Mr. McFadden says, the only reason you came here is to leave. So I want to help you with that and help you figure out what you want to do. So make sure you book an appointment with me. It's in the bottom of all my emails. And part of the way that I can help you determine what you want to do if you're unsure is through the Life on Taps. We want to bring speakers in from all career fields to help you kind of determine if this is maybe the right one for you. There are lots of stories of students coming to these events not knowing what they want to do, and they hear something and they get excited and it changes their career path. So we hope that this will happen for you tonight. A couple of housekeeping things. Actually, if you haven't checked in with Miss Abigail back there, she's waving at us from the bar, make sure you do so you get credit. There is plenty of food and there's beverages all around. So we hope you stay and enjoy. And we will do a Q&A at the end, and our speakers, if you all want to come sit down, take a seat. We'd love that. We have plenty of seating for you. And also, we are planning our Life on Taps for next year and but beyond. So if you have suggestions or requests for career fields you'd like to see represented, please let me know. I'd love to hear them. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce both speakers, and then they will get up and speak individually, and then they will take questions. All right. Arthur Denagam, yes, who graduated in 2006, holds a master's degree in business with a focus on accounting from UMUC, and has worked as a bookkeeper at the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. And after working at a number of other Catholic institutions, he now serves as the business manager at Holy Spirit Catholic Church in Annandale, Virginia. And Kate McMahon Leonard graduated in 2002, has been in the accounting world since graduation, working for a variety of industries, including insurance, software development, financial management, and construction. In 2015, she founded Mola Business Solutions to help small businesses with their day-to-day accounting functions, payroll, and more. So please give them a warm welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Kristen said, my name is Arthur Denagam. I'm here to tell my story in the hopes that it'll help inspire you all to start thinking about your future careers. My story begins with graduating from a small Catholic high school in Maryland. I grew up in a fairly conservative Catholic family in a kind of a liberal area, so I had the idea that I knew pretty much about as much of the faith as I needed to know, so I actually wasn't interested in going to Christendom. My interest was more in going to the local state college and getting educated in something that would be useful to me. But my older brother, who had gone a year prior to me to Christendom, and my mother convinced me to try Christendom out. So after the first couple weeks here, I not only acknowledged how deep the faith truly is, but also got to form the beginnings of really true and deep friendships that I would carry with me throughout the rest of my life into the present. So while at Christendom, I was formed both in and outside of the classroom. Inside the classroom, it helped me in terms of how to think clearly, how to think logically and objectively, to put aside my own opinions and try to see to the heart of the matter. Outside of the classroom, just forming those friendships with the peers to try and seek virtue, and also forming mentorships with a few of the professors, them sharing their experiences and their knowledge, and just establishing that to help me learn more about myself, but also who I was meant to be. At the end of my stay at Christendom, I actually didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't really have a dream job or anything like that. So, I'm sure some of you might feel the same way. But, I applied to various positions. I knew I had to pay bills. I knew the bills were going to be coming from Christendom. I had taken out a loan. And so various jobs I applied to. I took one down in Georgia in the field of IT. and tried my hardest to stick to it and see if that's where the Lord was calling me, if that's where my interest would grow. After a couple years, it didn't work out. I actually decided to, or I discerned a possible call to the priesthood, came back to the area, applied to the seminary in the Archdiocese of Washington, and that didn't work out. But in the meantime, I had a position at the shrine as a bookkeeper, as mentioned before. And through that, I found out with the employer they had some staff development incentives. Basically, they would, while I was there, they would pay for some of the schooling that to help advance me in the realm of accounting. So I took advantage of that, and after a few years of going to school, I earned my master's and went on to work at various different other Catholic institutions as their accountants, ending up in my current position as the business manager for Holy Spirit Catholic Church. You know, it was actually at the shrine that while I was doing some accounting work that I actually now figured out that that was a natural fit for me, seeing as how it combined two of my favorite subjects, philosophy and math. Philosophy, I say, because in accounting there's a lot of you have to take principles and apply them to particular situations in various different ways, and things aren't always black and white. So there's an art to it as well. So just to give you an idea of the day-to-day struggles and rewards in my current job, some of the things I have to deal with involve conflict with coworkers. So, you know, just being able to mediate between different coworkers, making sure that each one is saying what they need to say in a way that is understandable to the other, making sure there's no misunderstandings, but also being that third objective party so that, you know, tensions don't get out of hand. Another just thing that I encounter is being able to apply policy or principle to the practical running of the parish. Sometimes the diocese might have, we all fall under the diocese as parishes, but they have principles or policies that we have to follow, but given the number of staff, for instance, that we might have on hand, we can't always fit those ideals, so making do with the best we can. Some rewards, you know, in doing what I do involve just being in a Catholic institution. I have the joint mission of living out my faith with my coworkers, and that's very important. I have the ability to go to daily Mass at where I work, and kind of unique to the position I find is especially in light of the current crisis in the Church, just the ability to ease the burden of the pastor in his administrative duties. You might have heard of some criticisms of the clerics today in that they take too much of an administrative role in the Church and are too much like CEOs. And I kind of see my position as taking a little bit of that burden off the pastor, such that he doesn't have to be in the weeds of administering the duties and the day-to-day details of running a parish, and he can focus more on his role as pastor and shepherd of souls. So, so what does all this have to do with you all tonight, and what can you glean from this? Well, I hope in general, whether you're thinking about the field of accounting or not, there are some things I think you can start to think about tonight and really focus on for your future careers. One is just really hone in and finesse your habits of thinking. You know, to really try to, again, take advantage of the training you're receiving here and in you know, thinking logically, objectively, and seeing to the heart of matters. You want to practice being professional. You know, practice being polite, patient, timely. I can't tell you, as business manager, I do more than counting numbers. I also take care of HR, payroll, And so I am involved with all of the hiring, and I can't tell you how many times when people don't submit their resumes on time or aren't communicative when they're applying to the position, how much of a turnoff that is to employers. So, I mean, it's a small thing, but it's very important to employers when they're looking. I would also advise you all to really focus on your friendships and seek mentorship from professors. They're here, they're very invested in seeing you all flourish and succeed, and they've watched many people transition, make that transition. So I'm sure they have lots of pearls of wisdom to offer you. And through these friendships and mentorship relationships, I think you will better be able to have a self-knowledge, which would involve, I think, 3 key areas. Not only your strengths, being the first one, where you get to learn, your natural aptitude, but also your weaknesses. A favorite saying of St. Thomas More that I like is, a man should not go where he is tempted. So, knowing your weaknesses can also help you discern where, positions that you might not want to go. And then lastly, also your desires. Our Lord often talks to us through our desires, and I really truly believe that, and I think that's something that that you can really learn through others and through your friendships with others. Another point I want to put out there is to be practical. If your dream job doesn't come along when you graduate, which for most of us doesn't, just really apply yourself, sort of like I did. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. Apply yourself and just get a job where it's going to make sense. Make out a budget, especially, particularly to you men out there. You want to plan immediately. If you're considering the married life, which most of you are, probably, you need to have a plan for providing for a family, okay? So you start now, and even if you're working at a job that doesn't, fit your long-term career path, or you can't determine what it is your career path should be, you need to make sure that it at least pays the bills, including any debts you need to pay off, and that might involve sacrificing, which is good practice for the married life. Sacrificing. When I was down in Georgia, I lived off of rice and beans, and as some of you may know Father O'Keelty, it was very much what he used to say. Every day he would eat rice and beans, except on Sunday when he ate beans and rice. So, and then finally, in general, networking. Networking is important. As a business manager, I hired a lot of people, most of whom had a personal reference with someone on the staff, as well as when I was being hired, it was mostly through, again, just knowing someone who knew someone at the place where I wanted to work. So I definitely want to highlight networking. Specifically for the accounting and business fields, I just want to highlight a few things there. Accounting involves math, but it's not like rocket science math. You don't have to know calculus. It's very elementary, so don't be afraid of math in that regard if you're considering accounting. I would suggest that you familiarize yourself with spreadsheets and software, plan budgets through them, familiarize yourself with the Excel. That's a good place to start. You probably want to whittle down what kind of accounting or business you want to get into, whether that's for-profit, not-for-profit, private or public sector. That'll help you hone in inform your schooling that you want to attend to, what degrees you want to get. And if you do want to go up the ladder in the accounting field or the business field, you will need to get a degree in that field. And then finally, again, I just want to reiterate that virtue, just continue. Obviously, virtue, not only as a Catholic, helps you towards your sanctification personally, but it also makes you stand out to your employer in the small ways. So just forming that habit. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
My name is Kate Leonard, and I'm also a McMahon. I'm the original McMahon. I was the one who was here first. We're bookends, Gemma and I are. And so I actually grew up in New York State, Binghamton, New York, and my parents didn't live down here until after I graduated. And I didn't want to go to Christendom, didn't want to go to a Catholic school. My dad made us visit a whole bunch of different places, and I came to Christendom and really kind of just fell in love with the people. It was home. Where we grew up in New York, there were no other large families. There was very few people who had similar values, and you kind of always felt like a fish out of water. And then I came to Christendom, and it was the complete opposite. And I was here for homecoming weekend, and immediately, this is where I want to go after a day. So that's kind of how I ended up here, and you ended up here. I'm going to take credit for all 10 of us, just so you guys know. So while I was at Christendom, I did student council, I played basketball. I'm a philosophy major also. They do math and science. They do go hand in hand. Your mind tends to work in a similar way. If you're good in math, you tend towards philosophy. They seem to work well. And during the summers, I would bookkeep as my summer jobs. And then I worked my way through school, both in the summers, and then I did work study here at Christendom too. This actually was the library when I was here. The library opened, I think it was the year after I left. So I did some bookkeeping here in the library because it was already on my experience on my application from school, because I'd done it during the summers. So after Christendom, my senior year, applying for jobs, right? A lot of you guys are kind of in that boat. What am I going to do? Knew some people who lived in the DC area. I just needed a job. I knew what that number was when I went to the financial aid office, and they said, here's what you have to pay when you graduate. This is the monthly payment. And so I was just desperate. I just needed a job. So I went to work for an insurance company as a sales rep, just answering phones, helping the sales guys out, just whatever. It was enough money so I could pay my bills. And after about 6 months, they needed someone in the accounting department, and they came to me and said, hey, we remember when you applied, you had this bookkeeping from high school and college on your resume. Would you be interested? And it was a $5,000 increase. So I was like, sure. I had zero interest in actually being in accounting, but they were going to pay me more. So sign me up. And I had really, really great mentors in that first job. And I realized that there's a lot of different kinds of accounting. There's tax accounting. I mean, Arthur mentioned there's a huge array that can cater somewhat to your skill set and your personality. And so, you can specialize, but this really kind of opened the door to me and let me see the different aspects of this job. And that a lot of it has to do with hiring. There's a lot of HR involved, and there's a lot of basic math. Like, if you can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and percentages, you're golden. I mean, really, that's all you need to know how to do. And to that point, that first job I had gotten through Christendom alumni that had graduated ahead of me, a couple of people I had met at homecoming, and this particular employer tried to hire Christendom grads because Christendom had a really good reputation. So a lot of the stuff you're doing now, even in your friendships and just going to classes and living the spirituality, you're building these habits that employers recognize and value. And I may be in accounting, but I still write emails every day. I probably write 50 or 60 emails every day. Being able to communicate well through written word and orally is a skill set a lot of people don't have anymore, especially the more we use texting and abbreviations for a lot of stuff. People just don't articulate clearly, and as much as those papers really suck, they do, there's value there. There's value there, I promise. Although I will never write a thesis again, ever. Thank God. So I worked in various fields related to accounting. So I was in my first job for 5 years. I had a great mentor, and then actually some guys that I'd gone to school with were moving over to a financial management company and said, hey, we really need somebody. Are you interested? So I ended up doing that for a little bit. And I ended up doing about 10 years worth of experience in the accounting field. I did not go back to school to get my accounting degree. If I had gone more specialized versus, I do a lot of day-to-day running of the office, the paying of the bills, the reconciliations, that type of thing. So my experience was sufficient for that, but if I'd wanted to specialize more, I would definitely recommend going back to school. But to your point, Arthur, finding an employer who's willing to sponsor those things, you kind of need to know, right? No one really, all right, maybe some people do. Most people don't say, hey, I want to do accounting when I graduate. Like, it's just not, it's not a glamorous, it's not an exciting career. It's a great career. It's super stable. Every business needs accounting. Every business in the world needs accounting. And they normally need one or two different kinds of accounting. So there's always going to be a market for it. So it's really valuable in that sense. But like if I wanted to do tax accounting, Francois Flippin, Dr. Flippin's son, has started his own tax accounting business. He's a CPA. So there's a lot of options. But until you actually try some of these jobs, you just don't know if it's a good fit, right? I mean, how am I supposed to know if I'm good at this until I try it? So if you have an interest in something, this is where the networking comes in huge in your summer jobs, or if you're working a side job or even work steady. If there's something you're interested in, try it now. Like, do it during the summer. Do it, find something related. It's a good way to kind of get your feet wet. My brother-in-law, his whole 4 years at Christendom was planning on going to engineering. He was going to get a degree in philosophy, and then he was going to grad school for engineering. And after a semester, dropped out. He hated it. But this was his whole life plan, and so everything had to pivot, and they were engaged at that point. And so, you know, there's a lot to be said for getting your feet wet while you're still in school. It's never too late. I mean, like I said, I had no plans on being in accounting. I just fell into it. So I was in the business for about 10 years, really enjoying it. I had started doing more operations. I was the director of operations for a government contractor. And I got married. So I was about 10 years out of college when I got married. And I had my first son, and I was working for someone. It was starting to get a little stressful. As you guys know, college debt is going up, right? And the likelihood of you marrying somebody, even if you don't have it, they probably will. And so dual family incomes is a very real thing on the horizon for a lot of us, you know, or taking a time off before you get married to pay down these debts. I mean, you need to have a budget. I know you mentioned that, but, you know, I mean, right now, if we had $30,000 in college debt, that would be one of my husband's 2 paychecks a month right now. That would just go to college loans. My husband's a police officer. We need police officers. We need teachers. But it's hard to make a living on those incomes, especially when you're right out of college. It takes time. It takes seniority. So accounting is a really great industry if you are thinking about getting married, or even if you're not. You know, not all of us are called to marriage right out of Christendom. I know a lot of us think that that's what's going to happen. I totally thought that was going to happen, and I didn't plan very well accordingly. But I'm so grateful for that time, because now I started my own business about 4 years ago after I had my second kid. And so my husband's a police officer. I work with clients on the days that he's home during the week, and I work from home. I work during nap time. Anna actually, I don't know whether Anna babysits every once in a while for us. Mary used to, Gemma, which I'm really grateful for. So I can be at home with my kids most of the time, but still have this additional significant income that I've built this, you know, I'm 15 years now into the accounting world, and so I was able to take that experience and translate it to my family life, but also into a career that supports my family and the lifestyle that we want to live. And so I really encourage you to look at what you want your life to look like now. It doesn't mean you have to have a plan, but have an idea as to what you want your family structure to look like. And what do I need to do to get there? You know, if I want my wife to be able to stay at home, then what steps do I need to take now that is going to make that a reality? in the future. If I'm okay with the dual income, and this is both men and women, this is a partnership marriage. This is something you work through together, and you have to figure it out. And you don't know who God is calling you to. Maybe you do. Maybe you already know who that person is. I didn't. It took me a long time to get there. And I never thought I would marry a police officer, ever. I didn't think I would marry an introvert. All of these things. I assumed I would be done with college because I got married 10 years out of college. Well, he got out of the military. Guess what he did? He went back to school the first semester. We were engaged. It stunk. I was like, no, we've already paid. We've done this. I'm done with college. I don't want to pay any more loans. So you just have an idea as to what you want your life to look like and start kind of taking steps. Now is the time to do that. Experiment. Try different fields. Get jobs in different areas. Look at your skills. Are you good at math? Is it something that's interesting to you? Are you good with people? Do you want to do sales? So this is a good chance to really expand your horizons. And networking, Christendom, I've had probably 6 jobs since I graduated, and 4 out of the 6 came from people that I knew through Christendom, either directly or indirectly. And now that I'm running my own business, that's even more, it's even more valuable now. In fact, actually, I think Larry Ergo spoke here last week. I don't know if any of you guys were there. He's one of my clients. I've done some work with Jeremy. Christendom is great from a referral basis, both in getting a job or if you're running a business and you have this reputation. People assume that because you went to Christendom, you're going to have this moral integrity and you're going to do your job hard and you're going to do it well and they're going to get good value for their dollar. So, and I named it Mola Business Solutions after St. Gianna Mola, who is the patron saint of working mothers. So that was kind of the idea. And hopefully as we grow, we'll be able to hire other moms who want to stay at home with their kids. And, this will be a way for them to earn some additional income. So that's all I got.